In this week's Jaunts with John T, we have the first in a three-part series on our experience going on our first ever ocean cruise as a family, a 7-night, 8-day cruise on the Viking Mars to Iceland. We will focus on everything that happened up to the point of us getting on the ship, including choosing a cruise, setting up any reservations, packing, getting to Iceland and to the port, and we will end with us boarding the ship. Howdy, and welcome to Jaunts with John T. And this video is the first in our three-part series about our experience going on our first ever ocean cruise as a family. Now first, the details. We went on an 8-day, 7-night cruise aboard the Viking Mars to Iceland. Our traveling party was myself, my wife Andy, and our 2 adult kids, Nat and Charlie. Now this video is going to include everything leading up to us actually getting on the ship. That includes choosing the cruise, planning, making our reservations, packing, gotta love a good packing video, basically everything up to the point where we actually get on the ship. The second part in this series will cover our experience actually on the ship, including a detailed tour of our stateroom as well as the entire cruise ship, as well as some thoughts that I will share on my personal feelings towards some of the amenities on the ship. Now the third part in this series will deal with everything that happens after the cruise, including the entire disembarkation process, as well as my thoughts on any lessons learned, if any. In these videos, I'm going to go into great detail in every step in the process of planning and going on a Viking cruise. Now, as I mentioned, we are specifically going on a cruise to Iceland aboard the Viking Mars, but I'm hoping and thinking that a lot of what I'm going to talk about in these videos will be applicable to other cruise lines and certainly to other Viking cruises. That said, I'm sure I will mention things that really only apply to the particular cruise that we went on. Speaking of that, I will also be putting together a series of videos that get into our actual experience on Iceland, including the excursions that we go on, the towns that we visit, that sort of thing. As a newbie cruiser, in preparation for this cruise, I have been watching a lot of videos by more experienced cruisers. Now, 2 of my favorite vloggers are the Tim Tracker and Ordinary Adventurers, and they often will go on cruises, and I really enjoy watching their videos on cruises because they can be a lot of fun. But the ones that I've really found to be more informative are the ones by vloggers who focus exclusively on cruising. The 2 that I've really enjoyed the most and that I've really learned the most from are Emma Cruises, as well as David Bembridge on Tips for Travelers. I will post a link to all of these YouTube pages in the description. One of the first questions that you might ask is, why did we decide to take a Viking cruise to Iceland? And if you really think about it, that's actually 3 questions. The first question is, why Iceland? And the answer to that is that as a family, we've been wanting to go to Iceland for years. Our desire to do this really started when we saw an exhibit at an art gallery about 10 years ago, if not more, that was about Iceland and showed a lot of its natural beauty. I went with Andy and our 2 kids, and we just all were fascinated by it, and at that time we all decided we definitely want to go to Iceland. Now, as to the question of why we decided to go on a cruise instead of doing a tour or just booking something on our own, we are, after all, pretty experienced travelers, so we certainly could have done that. But in the end, we decided on taking a cruise mostly, frankly, because of the food. And not just because cruises are known for having good food, but in our case specifically, it was something that was very important to us. Now, the reason why food was so important to us is because Andy and Charlie are both vegetarians, and Nat is actually a vegan. A couple years ago, Andy and Nat went on a trip to Northern Europe, including Norway, and they discovered that it was very difficult to find vegetarian offerings, especially vegan offerings. And so interestingly, it was actually Andy who made the suggestion that maybe we should do a cruise, because that way on a cruise we knew that they would be accommodating for dietary needs. Now, the reason that I was somewhat surprised that it was Andy who made this choice is because of the 4 of us, she's the only one who actually has been on a cruise before, but both of her experiences weren't really all that good. You see, the first time she went on a cruise, I think it was to the Bahamas with her elderly aunt, and let's just say that her aunt is not the most pleasant person to spend several days in close quarters with. The second cruise she went on was a cruise to Alaska, and it was actually for her job. Andy is now retired, but previously she was a creative director for an advertising agency, and they sent her on this cruise. I don't know, I don't remember why. Maybe it was because they were trying to win over this particular account or something. I don't remember exactly why, but they sent her on a cruise to Alaska. Unfortunately, 2 days into the cruise, they said, no, we need you back in the office, and they pulled her back out again. So she was only on the cruise for about 2 days. So I like to say that she's been on 1.5 cruises. Also, you know, Andy and I are very experienced travelers, but we've kind of always said that cruising was not really kind of our thing. But we also used to say that, you know, maybe when we got a little bit older, we'd reconsider that. Well, you know, guess what? We're a little bit older now, and we've reconsidered it, and now we're thinking maybe cruising is a good idea. So all of those things kind of put together made us decide that on this trip to Iceland, the best thing for us to do would be to take a cruise. So now why Viking cruises? Well, the reason is because most cruises that go to Iceland do not go exclusively to Iceland. Most cruises that go to Iceland either go to Northern Europe in Iceland, or maybe Greenland in Iceland, even Canada sometimes in Iceland. And that's not what we really wanted. What we really wanted was we wanted a cruise exclusively that went to Iceland, and that's what Viking offers. There is another cruise line, Oceania, that also offers a cruise that goes exclusively to Iceland. Those are the only two that I know of, by the way. But the itinerary for Viking was something that really made more sense for us. So that is how we ended up deciding on going on a Viking cruise to Iceland. Now, one of the first decisions you're going to have to make after you decided to go on a cruise and where you want to go is whether or not to work with a travel agent. I suppose you could decide to work with a travel agent first because maybe they're the ones who will help you decide where to go. But at any rate, in our case, we'd already decided that we wanted to go on Viking and we wanted to go to Iceland. And then the question is, well, should we work with a travel agent? The reason I decided to work with a travel agent was for a couple of reasons. First, I'm just a believer in travel agents. I believe that it's good to work with somebody who does this for a living, and they might know certain aspects of booking an experience like this that I might miss. And so I figured working with an experienced professional would be a good idea. In addition, very often, especially when booking cruises, when you work with a travel agent, sometimes they will give you certain perks. A very common perk, as an example, would be onboard credits. I should also note that Charlie is now a travel agent, so I kind of evangelize for travel agents. Unfortunately, when we booked this cruise, she was not licensed yet, so we wouldn't have been able to use her as our travel agent. Now, I'm not going to mention the travel agent that we actually worked with, and the reason I'm not going to mention them is because our experience with them was, some of it was actually quite good, and some of it was not good at all. As a matter of fact, some of it was very bad. And I'm not 100% sure that the problem that we had was their fault. I'm about 85% sure it was their fault, but I'm not 100% sure it was their fault. So for that reason, I don't think it's fair to me to, kind of call them out for something that possibly they didn't do. Now, to begin with, I chose this travel agent because I saw them on YouTube. They have some YouTube videos that they posted, and they kind of touted themselves as being, like Viking experts. I have to say, I didn't think they were particularly experts in Viking. They were fine. I mean, they were pretty much what you'd expect a travel agent to be, but I didn't find that they had any secret knowledge that I wouldn't expect any travel agent, frankly, to have about Viking. Now, as I had also mentioned, one of the reasons that I wanted to go with a travel agent is because sometimes you'll get perks, and very often those perks come in the form of onboard credits. I did actually ask the travel agent about that, and they said, yeah, we can do onboard credits. They didn't seem to be too happy about the idea, but they said, yeah, we can do that. And he offered a $100 onboard credit, which is fine. I mean, okay, great. $100, I'll take it. No problem. And I'm also going to mention one other thing about working with this particular travel agent that was actually really good. And I'll be getting, I'm sorry, a little bit ahead of the game here, but I think it's important to mention it now. Is that a couple of weeks ago, I contacted them and reminded them that they had promised that they would give us this onboard credit. And they got back to me and they said, yes, absolutely, we're happy to give you the onboard credit, and it will be $100 per person. So it actually turned out to be $400, $200 for each stateroom. So that was actually really nice. That was a very, very nice surprise. Now, as I mentioned, there was also one thing the travel agent did that was actually very bad. I'm not going to get into that right now. It has to do with our flights, and I'll talk about that a little bit when I get to the part where I talk about booking the flights. Now, of course, the next thing you have to start thinking about is payment. And we all hate having to think about paying for vacations, but that is part of the vacation experience now, isn't it? One thing about booking cruises is that very often they make you pay for the cruise pretty much right away, or you have to pay for it well in advance of the actual cruise. And this was that case. I do know that sometimes if you go back and rebook a cruise on a particular cruise line that you've already been on, sometimes they don't, they defer the actual payment. But in this case, it's the first time we've ever cruised on Viking, and we pretty much had to make our payment right away. Now, they do give you the option of paying with a credit card, but if you choose instead to pay like by a direct deposit from a checking account or a savings account or something like that, then they give you a pretty substantial discount. If I remember correctly, it was about 3.5%. And that's, that's a fair bit of change. So even though I'd be, missing out on all those frequent flyer points on my credit card, I thought, the 3.5% discount was a bit of a better thing to go for. So we decided to pay that way. But you do have the option of paying with a credit card if you want. Now, once you've booked the cruise and you paid for it and everything, the next thing that you're going to do in the case of Viking, and I assume this is very similar for other cruise lines as well, is that you're going to want to set up an account with Viking. The way you do this with the Viking is you go to a website called My Viking Journey, and that website has everything to do with the cruise that you're going to be going on. The first thing you do is you give it your booking number, and you put in your booking number, and then once you put your booking number in, it pulls up the particular cruise that you're going on, and it allows you to start filling out different parts of the website with the information that is needed for your cruise. One thing I do want to say about My Viking Journey that I don't know if this is all cruises are this way or if all cruise lines are this way. I found this to be a little bit of a quirk and a little bit annoying. But the name of the person who is the owner of the page, of the My Viking Journey page, has got to be one of the people on the itinerary for the booking. Now, what does that mean? Well, in our case, we actually had two different bookings, one for myself and Andy, and one for Nat and Charlie, because we had two different staterooms. So when I set up the My Viking Journey page, I put in my booking number and it was fine. But it wouldn't let me put in the other booking number because the two people on that booking were Natalie and Charlie, and neither one of them are me. So it wouldn't let me add their booking to my Viking Journey page, which means that I wasn't able to manage both of our bookings at the same time on just one website. And that was a bit inconvenient. In a sense, it turned out to be not so bad because, as I mentioned, we now have a resident travel agent in the family. And so basically, I just handed all of that over to Charlie and I said, you take care of you and Nat, I'll take care of me and my wife. One of the first things that you're going to want to do when you get your My Viking Journey website set up is to fill out all of the guest information. This is very important. You fill it all out with your name, your address, and most importantly, things like your passport number and all of that sort of pertinent information. It's very, very important that all of this information is accurate because if there are any inaccuracies on this information, you may get denied boarding onto the ship, frankly. So you want to be very careful to make sure that everything is filled out correctly. A little side note is that every time I called Viking support, they asked me the same question pretty much every time. Is the name on the guest information exactly the same as the name is on the passports? And I kept on saying, yes, it is. And I checked it about 150 times. Another thing that you can set up immediately on your My Viking Journey page is your flight preferences. And your flight preferences, you do things like you put in if you have a preferred airline and what your frequent flyer number is for that airline, and like what kind of seating combination that you would prefer. Like in our case, Andy and I both like aisle seats, so we always prefer to have aisle seats across from each other, that sort of thing. So you can put all that information into the website as well, and those are two things that you can set up and should set up as soon as you get your My Viking Journey website set up. One more important thing I'd like to say about the My Viking Journey website is that from now on, when I'm talking about setting things up, anytime I just refer to the website, something that you have to do on the website, from now on, I'm always referring to the My Viking Journey website. About 5 months before our cruise, we got a notice from Viking that we could pick our flights. They gave us a bunch of flights to choose, and we basically really didn't like any of them. One of the main issues that I had with them was that there were no direct flights. They all had layovers. And when it's a really long flight, my preference is to have, I'd rather have one short flight and one long flight than two like medium length flights. And all of those flights were things where like we had a layover, I don't know, somewhere at the East Coast or something like that. So we didn't really want to do that. So that was one issue that we had. And the other issue, this is more really my issue, was I would have preferred to book a flight with somebody who was partnered with Alaska Airlines, because that way I would get the frequent flyer points, because it's a pretty long trip and I wanted those points. So I talked to a Viking representative, and what they recommended was that we upgrade to what they call Air Plus. Air Plus is $150 a person, and it opens up a lot more flights to you. It gives you a lot more availability of flights. And as soon as we did that, then we got the exact flights that we wanted. There were the flights that we'd already picked as being the flights that we wanted, which was a flight to Reykjavik, where we would fly from Portland, our home airport, to Seattle, and then Seattle to Reykjavik. And then on the way back, there was a direct flight from Reykjavik to Portland. One of the reasons we wanted to fly Iceland Air was because they were the only airline that actually flies direct to Reykjavik. Now, the flight out there was not direct, but they don't fly direct from Portland every day, but they do fly direct to Portland on some days. The day of our flight out there, they didn't fly direct, but it was cool because it was just a quick hop to Seattle and then the really long flight from Seattle to Reykjavik. So that was what we wanted to do. And once we upgraded to Air Plus, then we were able to get those flights. The upgrade cost $150 per person, and I definitely think it was worth it. And now I'm going to give you what I think is kind of a traveling pro tip. Many years of experience of traveling and arranging trips have taught me something very simple. Leave your options open. Don't commit to anything until you have to commit to that thing. And this was really a case of that. I didn't want to commit to getting Air Plus until we saw what the flights were available that didn't require Air Plus. Once I saw what those flights were, and I knew that none of them really suited us, that's when I upgraded to Air Plus. So once we had our flights reserved, then I went to Iceland Air, and on their website, I picked seats for our flights, and I also arranged for meals for the flights. I paid extra for the seats for me and Andy, their exit row seats. I think I might have paid extra for the seats for Nat and Charlie as well. I don't remember. I maybe paid a little bit less. I don't really recall, but I gave them seats that were a couple of rows behind our seats. And this is where the issue with our travel agent came in. A few weeks later, we got a call from the travel agent telling us that they had to rebook the flight from Portland to Seattle because there was a change in the flights. Fine, no big deal. And they said also that don't worry about it, everything was taken care of. So a few days or maybe a few weeks later, I got a call from Charlie, who I mentioned earlier is a travel agent. I think she was still training at the time. And she said, "What happened? Why are we suddenly seated in the last row on our flight to Reykjavik?" In addition to us being seated in the wrong seats all of a sudden, we also, I noticed, didn't have our meal assignments anymore either, again for the flight from Seattle to Reykjavik. This is what I think happened. I think that the travel agent needed to change the flight from Portland to Seattle, and when they did that, maybe they also had to touch the flight from Seattle to Reykjavik. I really don't know. Or maybe they did something wrong. Again, I don't know. But either way, they didn't bother to look and see what we had already set up on the flight from Seattle to Reykjavik. And I guess they had to re-pick the seats again, and they left it up to their own, devices as to what seats they thought that we would want. And I think they probably thought, oh, well, clearly they all want to sit together, and the only place that's available where there are 4 seats together is the very back row, without bothering to look to see had we picked seats previously. And also they apparently didn't look to see that we had meals as well. Anyway, I don't know for a fact that that's what happened, but I do think that that's probably what happened. So they really messed up our reservation. Luckily, Charlie noticed. I was able to get online with, I first talked to Viking, and then ultimately I talked to Iceland Air. I was on hold with Iceland Air for quite some time. We got the seats figured out, and all that was done. The big issue turned out to be the meals, and This turned out to be a problem. I found out later, this turned out to be a problem where actually, because it kept looking like I didn't have a meal. And actually I did have a meal, but the way that it was shown on the reservation was confusing, so I didn't realize that the meal was there. And the Iceland Air people kept on saying, no, you have the meal, and then I'd look and it wasn't there. And they never told me, well, this is what you're seeing tells you that you have a meal, and I didn't know that. Long story short. Anyway, be that as it may, we finally got it all worked out. It took me several hours on the phone, mostly on hold, to get that figured out. And I'm pretty sure that it was because our travel agent messed up. But in the end, everything was fine. We had the seats that we wanted, we had the meals that we wanted, and now we are ready to go. Now the next big thing to happen for us was 67 days out, we were able to pick the excursions that we wanted to take. Now, how far in advance you can pick your excursions depends on the type of stateroom that you have. Viking has multiple levels of staterooms, and depending on what level your stateroom is, that determines how far in advance you're able to pick your excursions. In our case, we had a deluxe veranda. That is the sort of second lowest level of stateroom that you can have, and in our case, we were able to pick our excursions 67 days in advance. The lowest level is a veranda stateroom, and they can pick their excursions 60 days in advance. The higher levels could have done it earlier. I don't know exactly when, but there are schedules on the Viking website that tell you, how far in advance you can pick your excursions based on what type of stateroom you have. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here about the different types of staterooms that Viking has. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the second video in this series, where I actually go through the ship and show you a little bit more about the ship and the stateroom. But the only important thing for the purposes of this video is the fact that depending on what type of stateroom you have, that will determine when you can pick your excursions. The other thing I will note about the staterooms, which literally every vlogger or blogger or whatever that I've seen talking about Viking has said the same thing, which is that Viking does not have any bad staterooms. Another thing I'll note is that Viking has free excursion for every port that you go into. So that means that you don't have to pay for any excursions if you don't want to. You can go on an excursion every day and they can all be free. Those excursions, at least on this particular cruise, tended to be things like, a little tour of whatever the port was that you were in, that sort of thing, which, for us was something that we definitely would want to be able to do. So for that reason, by and large, we did pick the free excursions. There were two exceptions. And one of them was we did do one paid excursion, which is an excursion to Glacier Bay, and we're really looking forward to that. That was a paid excursion. And the other thing we're doing is not a Viking excursion at all, which is that we're going to local hot springs in one of the villages that we're going to, and that's not through Viking at all. We just booked that on our own. But the other 4 towns that we're going to be doing the regular included Viking excursion. Now, as I mentioned, since we had a deluxe veranda stateroom, we were like the second lowest tier, so we were able to pick our excursions 67 days out, and that meant that everybody with the higher level of staterooms was able to pick their excursions before they got to us. I will say that we got every excursion that we wanted, and more importantly, we got the time that we wanted for every excursion except one. One we got a later time than we originally wanted, but everything else we got the excursions that we wanted, and we got them with the times that we wanted. Now with the free excursions, or I should say with the included excursions, I think they do actually guarantee that you can get on those included excursions. So if too many people reserve those excursions, I think they just will add another one. So the next thing that happened was that 30 days out, we were able to pick our reservations for specialty dining. Viking does specialty dining a little bit differently than most cruise lines. The main difference is that Viking does not charge extra for any specialty dining. They do have two, I guess you call them specialty dining restaurants. One is called Manfredi's, which is an Italian restaurant, and the other one is called the Chef's Table, which is, I understand, it's like some kind of specialties where they change the menu every day or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. We will find out when we get there. Now, we wanted to make a reservation at both of those restaurants. Because we booked a deluxe veranda, we could make those reservations 30 days out, and we were able to make one reservation for each of the 2 different restaurants. At the higher levels of staterooms, you can make the reservations, I assume, earlier. And I also know that at the higher levels, they will give you more reservations. I think at some levels you could have specialty dining every night if you wanted to. And also at the lower level, at the veranda level, you can't make any reservations for specialty dining at all. You can make reservations for specialty dining once you get on the ship, but you can't make them ahead of time. Now, I have no idea if those specialty dining locations tend to have all their reservations gone very early. We'll find out when we get there. I really don't know. If we really like one, we might try to make another reservation at one of the restaurants. But there is another restaurant that is a sit-down restaurant where you don't need reservations at all, and that is just simply called The Restaurant. And of course, there are other casual dining locations, buffet, that sort of thing on the ship as well. And then about a month before we're set to depart, this came in the mail. So what this is from Viking. Basically, it's a bunch of stuff that we need to make sure that we meet up with the driver who's going to take us to the ship and everything is set. One is the set of instructions here, which tells us everything that we need to do. And what it comes with is, first of all, it comes with this, which is, these are like luggage tags that go on your bag. And what they tell you should do is wait until you get off of the airplane and you have gone through customs, you've gotten your bags, you've gone through customs, and then put these tags on your bags, because these are the tags that they will use to get your bags to the ship and into your stateroom. So these are important. By the way, a little bit later I'm going to talk about packing, and one of the things I'll talk about is that every one of us is packing a bag that we're going to keep with us that will not get a tag, that we're just going to carry on. That was something we're going to carry on to the ship. And when I get to the part about packing, I'll talk about what I'm putting in my carry-on bag that I'm taking with me and the logic behind why I'm taking what I'm taking. Another thing that comes with is these nice little luggage tags, just typical luggage tags. You can put your phone number or whatever on them. And then finally, it comes with these, which are tags that you put on yourself, and that identifies you to your driver as somebody who is going on a Viking cruise, and they're going to take you to the ship. Now, the last thing we have to do before we actually go on the cruise is, a few days ago we got an email asking us to set up something they call comfort check-in. Basically what it did was it took us to this website where we took like a picture of us, and we had to kind of like align it in a certain way, and they had all these requirements about what the picture looked like. And once the picture of our face was accepted, it submitted it, and we filled out some additional information, and in the end we got our boarding pass to get onto the ship. So now we have that as well, and I print all that stuff out, the boarding pass and any other pertinent information. By the way, as an experienced traveler, one thing I have learned is that when it comes to traveling abroad, I print out everything. Well, not everything, but any important documents, I print them out. I don't just have them on my phone. I actually print out physical copies, because you never know when you're traveling abroad. You might have problems with your phone. You might have problems with the Wi-Fi. Who knows? You could have issues that don't allow you to see something that's on your phone. So I always have that hard copy on me, and I take it with me whenever I go traveling abroad. Now, when you do the comfort check-in, one of the things that it does is it looks at a sheet that they give you that's called a guest information form that has all the information that you filled out on the website. And it prints it all out for you. And then at the bottom, there's a line that says, everything is in order. We have all the information that we need, and it's got a little check mark by it. And when you do the comfort check-in, it says, look at that form and make sure that it's got that checkbox. And if it doesn't have that checkbox, then go back and put in whatever information it tells you that you're missing. Now, before we get into packing, I would like to ask a favor. If you're enjoying this video, and I have to say, if you're still watching at this point and are not enjoying it, then maybe you should rethink your life choices. So I'm assuming that you're enjoying the video, and if you are, please be sure to give us a like. It really does help us out. In addition, I would love to hear what you think. Have you sailed on Viking? Have you been to Iceland? Are you thinking about going to Iceland, or are you thinking about doing a Viking cruise? If any of those things are true, or if you have any questions of things that I'm not answering in this series, please leave me a comment and let me know. Now, if you have any friends who are thinking about sailing on Viking or are thinking about going to Iceland and you think they might find this series informative, then please be sure to forward this video to them as well. But most importantly, please subscribe. We're trying to build our subscription base. It's free, it's easy. Hit that subscribe button, and then if you want to be notified of future videos, also hit the bell, and that way you'll be notified of future videos. And now, on to packing. All right, so this is actually a couple of days before we're leaving, and specifically it's Saturday, and we're leaving on Tuesday. So it's a couple of days, but we're going ahead and starting to pack now because we do have a bunch of stuff that we can go ahead and pack because we know we're not going to need it. And one thing I wanted to show you is that I'm packing a bunch of stuff using these things, which are these vacuum sealed bags. They're made by a company called Exter. And this is Andy's, but this is a whole bunch of her sweaters and stuff. Obviously, since we're going to Iceland, it's going to be cold, so she's bringing a lot of sweaters. So I put them into this, and it kind of sucked all the air out and condensed it down a little bit. And I'll do it with my stuff that I'm going to put into the bag too, so you can kind of see how it works. This is a big puffy vest. And I'm going to put that in here. This is a pair of like waterproof pants to go like over other pants. We're going on a Zodiac. They provide waterproof stuff on the Zodiac, but I thought, you know, we might need it for other things that we're going to do as well. So I'm bringing along my own pair. So I put that in here as well. These are these like Polartec fleeces. I just bought these a little while ago, specifically for this trip. They're something I kind of needed anyway. I bought 4 of them. One of them I'm going to wear on the plane, so I'm putting 3 in here in the bag. It's nice and stuffed in there. And last but not least, this is basically my raincoat. Excuse me. This is my raincoat, which it's going to be rainy in Iceland, so definitely going to need a raincoat. Hopefully we'll get some nice weather as well, but we're definitely going to be getting some rain, so I'm bringing on my raincoat as well. All right, so I got all this stuff in here, sweaters and things like that, that puffy vest, and I'm just going to zip it closed. And when you with these vacuum bags, what you want to be sure is you want to be sure to zip it all the way. It actually has these hooks here on the end to make it easier to pull it all the way down. But you want to make sure you pull the zipper all the way. It actually, up here, right here, it kind of locks into place. So you want to make sure that it's pulled all the way so that it is completely sealed up. And then you take this little gizmo. Supposedly you can do it with a regular vacuum as well, but I don't see the point. They give you this little vacuum that fits perfectly into the little hole here. And I'm going to suck all the air out. Okay. Looks like it's done. So as you can see, it compressed it a fair bit. So now it's all nice and compressed. And the size of these, by the way, you can put one in like the kind of rolly bag that you would bring onto the plane to put in the overhead. It'll fit perfectly one into that size. It'll fit 2 side by side like this in the large bags that you would check. Not the medium size, but the really big ones, which is what we're bringing for our main bag, is a very large bag. So I'm going to put these both in the bottom of that, and then we'll just continue packing. All right, so in addition to those vacuum bags, we also have these bags, and they're made by a company called, I cannot find their name here, but they're here somewhere. Anyway, I will, oh, here it is. They're made by a company called Begolini. And they're kind of similar to those, to the vacuum bags I showed you earlier, except these ones, instead of using a vacuum, they basically use just pressure to kind of compress everything. Because they have like these, this mesh here, and so that lets air in and out, but as you see, it uses pressure to kind of compress everything. And I have this one that I already did. This little bag contains 9 pairs of underwear. So there you go, all in this little bag. And what my hope is, I have some t-shirts here, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 t-shirts here, and I'm hoping that I can fit them all in this bag. Typically what I do with these bags is I typically roll things up when I pack them anyway. So I roll these up and stick them in the bag. I got the 7 t-shirts in there, and actually I think I have enough room for 2 more, just kind of knowing how this stuff works. So I'm going to try to put 2 more in here. All right, so there we got 9 t-shirts in here, and now I want to zipper this closed. Okay, now the idea with these bags in theory is that if you can close the zipper, then you should be able to close the second zipper, which is a compression zipper. So it has this second zipper. Actually, it's not completely unzipped. It has the second zipper here that then pulls the bag together, compressing everything. There it goes. Cool, so there it is. 9 t-shirts in this little bag. So I've got 9 pairs of underwear in here and 9 t-shirts in here. This bag is the bag that I'm going to take with me wherever I go. It's going to come with me everywhere. It's not going to leave my side. And we're not going to check it, obviously. And this is going to have all of this stuff in it that either I'm going to need or want to have access to while on the flight, or that I'm going to want to have access to immediately when we board the ship, because we're going under the assumption that we're going to be able to get onto the ship and get into our stateroom before our luggage does. This assumption is based on the fact that since we have deluxe veranda stateroom, according to the itinerary, we have access to our stateroom at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Our flight actually lands at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so there you go. So the first thing is, you know, just a kind of semi-change of clothes, basically an extra t-shirt, an extra pair of underwear. Oh, by the way, off camera, I realized I needed to pack the t-shirt in here, so I took it out of that bag here that I packed earlier. So anyway, pair of underwear and a pair of socks to change into. You know, just wear everything else. I just wear the same. It's no big deal. I also am packing toiletries. I have 2 bags of toiletries. This is the larger bag, which is going to have everything I'm going to need right away. I'm going to want to have to take a shower and all that kind of stuff. The smaller bag is stuff that I may need later, and that'll just, well, I will need later. And I'm just going to pack that into the checked bag. I also have this folder with all of the information that I showed earlier about all of our boarding passes, all of the printouts of everything, all of that kind of stuff. That's going to go in here. This, which has, you know, all of our tags and everything that I also showed earlier, that's going to go in here. A pair of headphones for the airplane. These are Bluetooth headphones, so that's going to go in here. A book. I downloaded a bunch of stuff. Excuse me. I downloaded a bunch of stuff to my phone, so I've got a bunch of stuff to watch while on the plane. But you know, sometimes you want to read, so I'm bringing this book, Boundless Realms by Fox Nolte, which I started, but I haven't gotten very far into, so I'm bringing that along. And last but not least is this little guy, which I bought for I don't know, like $10 on Amazon, and it's been so handy. It's a little over-the-shoulder bag. Sorry if I bumped the microphone there. If you've watched any of my videos, especially the videos with Charlie from Disneyland, you will have seen me wearing this bag. And I'm going to put the camera, but I'm using the camera right now, obviously, so I can't put it in there now. The camera, the spare battery for the camera, and the spare SD cards, which I'm sure I won't need, but they're all going to go into this bag. I'm bringing along some other photographic stuff as well, some other camera stuff, I should say, as well, including like a GoPro and stuff like that. But I'm not going to need that until later, so that's going to go in, all that stuff is going to go into a checked bag, and all that stuff is going in here. And I'm also in this pocket here, I'll put some charging cords and stuff like that. And this is going to go with me, and it's going to stay with me until we get on the ship. All right, I have our big main bag that we're taking with us, and it's got those two vacuum pack bags here that I put in earlier. When I put these in, I mentioned that the size of these are such that they can go one into a standard sized roll bag that goes into like an overhead, and two of them can fit in here. So the size of this bag, the interior of this bag is basically the same size as two of those carry-on rolling bags side by side. And that's good to know, because I happen to know that the way that these little packs are configured, that you can actually put them directly into the bag here, and they fit perfectly into a carry-on size bag. So that means that, and that's the three pieces, one large one and the one large one and two of these small ones fit perfectly in a carry-on size bag. So I know that two large ones and four small ones, which is what we have, are going to fit into this bag. And now on this side, I'm going to put the rest of my stuff, which is basically pants. I am, actually let me make sure, yes. I am bringing one nice, kind of like a Hawaiian shirt, like a button-down shirt. Actually, a couple of nicer button-down shirts, some polo shirts, and one long sleeve shirt. I don't really think I need a long sleeve shirt, but I'm bringing it just in case. There is a dress code on Viking ships for dinner. It's not a very strict dress code. Everything, my understanding is that as long as you're basically not wearing jeans and a t-shirt, you can, you're fine. I am bringing along two pairs of jeans. I just won't be wearing those at dinner. That's all. I'll probably wear those mostly when we go out on excursions and things like that. And then I'm going to take this and zipper it closed. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to put Andy's stuff in the bag. There's a little bit of a gap here. I'm going to fill in with stuff and then basically lay it all out as evenly as possible. So the idea is to make it as evenly distributed as possible. And then I got the little strap thing here to hold everything down. Oh, okay, all right. It's kind of loose anyway, so. All right, so that's all of Andy's stuff. This is all my stuff. We may have a few kind of stragglers, but we are bringing another bag that we're probably going to check anyway. I think we're going to be able to fit everything else we have in one of those small rolling bags that you can bring onto a plane. But I think we're going to check it anyway. And I have not expanded the suitcase. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it the way they say is the smart way to do it, which is I am going to expand it. Okay, so I've expanded it now, which will make it easier to zip it closed. By the way, you'll see this has a TSA lock on it. That is something I recently took a class in how to pack for trips. And they said that one of the things that people don't do all the time, and that is a huge mistake, is they don't lock their luggage. They say you should always, always, always lock your luggage. In particular, bags that you check, but even bags that you're keeping in the plane, that you're taking with you in the plane. People sneak into bags all the time on planes, apparently. So do lock your bag. Make sure that your lock is a TSA lock. It'll have a little, it's got like a little red logo on it. And what that means is there's a special key that TSA agents can use to open it without having to like pry it open or anything. So be sure your bag has a TSA lock. All modern luggage does have a TSA lock, and make sure to lock it. So now that it is closed, I'm going to close the second zipper to compress it. Voila, there we have it. One packed bag. And then, like I said, I'm going to lock it. And that's that. It's a very heavy bag. Actually, I need to weigh it to make sure it doesn't go over the weight limit. So I'm going to do that now. Usually the weight limit is about 50 pounds. I'm going to do that now to make sure it's not over the weight limit. Well, that was a measure twice, cut once kind of moment for all of you This Old House fans. The bag is indeed overweight. Not by much, just by a couple of pounds. But you know, I'd rather make sure that it's a few pounds underweight. I just don't want there to be any problems at the airport. So I came up with a plan. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here and I'm going to remove actually what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the two large of these compression bags and put all of the small ones to one side. And then instead of the compression bags, I'm going to put in shoes, which are much lighter. These are Andy's shoes, which, by the way, she can get two of her shoes into one of these little bags, and I can only get one of mine. But anyway, so I'm going to put the shoes in instead, which are significantly lighter. Actually, I'm going to check and see exactly how heavy these things are. I'll be right back. Okay, well, I'm glad I double checked because that actually does not remove quite enough weight. These two, between the two of them, weigh about 6 pounds, and the shoes weigh about 3 pounds, and I'm about 5 pounds overweight. So what I'm going to do is remove some more stuff. And the question is what? And I think what I'll do is I'm going to remove my pants as well. So all of this stuff that I'm just removing now is going to go into the second bag, which hopefully is going to be a smaller carry-on bag. I might need to make it another bag that needs to be checked. We're planning on checking it anyway, so it really doesn't matter. Actually, I think, well, we'll see. I'd rather use the smaller bag if I can. Okay, so let's see how much this weighs now. All right, it now weighs about 45 pounds, so it's not overweight anymore. And I'm going to zip it closed again. And close the compression zipper. All right, and there it is. Now that weighs about 45 pounds. So hopefully, I'll be able to fit everything else we need into a smaller carry-on bag. All right. I tried to get all of this stuff into this bag. Is it this bag? Yes. Into this bag. It didn't fit. So we've made the executive decision. We're going to take the big bag that I already packed and 2 small carry-on bags, one of which we will check and one of which we will take on the plane. We do have one other larger bag, but Nat is using that bag, so we can't use it. So what I'm going to do is this bag I'm going to put everything in it that basically is not clothes. So, and the clothes are going to go into a separate bag. That'll probably be the bag that we check. And we do have a few pieces of clothing like last minute that have to be added at the last minute. So we'll just add those later at the last minute just before we go. This is something we always take whenever we go to Europe or whenever we go to any foreign country. These are little half and half things. And we take them because we love our coffee and we love our coffee with half and half. And very often foreign countries do not have half and half, so we bring our own. This is a little charging station. It's a 500 watt charging station. I got 2 of these, one for our stateroom, one for the kids' stateroom. I just figured it would be more convenient to plug this thing in and be able to plug all of our devices into one charging station. Dramamine, I do have a history of motion sickness. It's usually not bad. I'm hoping it won't be bad on the boat, but I have had pretty bad episodes on a couple of times. I always take Dramamine with me just in case. And also these batteries, and these batteries are for this. Speaking of motion sickness, this is a little wrist device that you put on it's by a company called, what's it called? Relief Band. And you put it on your wrist, and what it does is it has these little electrodes and it kind of zaps you, and supposedly it relieves motion sickness. Does it work? All I can tell you is I've never suffered from motion sickness when I've had one of these on. Would I have suffered from it without it? Not a clue. But I've never had it with one of these on. I have 2 of them, by the way. This one is battery powered, hence the spare batteries. The other one I have is one that you plug into the wall to recharge it. That way I'll always have one available. I can wear this one with the batteries while the other one is charging. That headphones go into my other bag. So all the clothes and everything are going to go into the other bag. Got a couple of chargers, which not chargers, what am I saying? Adapters. I don't think we're going to need them on the ship, but if we're traveling to a foreign country, I always believe in being prepared. Also got a little pair of binoculars. I don't think we'll need that either, because my understanding is they have binoculars in the staterooms. That said, doesn't hurt, and if there's only 1 pair of binoculars, that way we'll have 2. Bringing a GoPro. This little guy here is something you can attach your camera to, and then it clips onto you can clip it onto something so you can have a steady camera. I've found it comes in handy, so I'm bringing it just in case I need it. These are additional toiletries, ones that I won't need immediately, but I'll need eventually. So I'm putting them in this bag that we're going to be checking. And this is like a chest strap for the GoPro. I have some thoughts about doing some GoPro videos with using the chest harness, so that's why I'm bringing it along. So I think the only other thing I'm going to put in this bag is the other pair of shoes. And that'll be it for this bag. And these clothes, these 2 and these clothes, those will all go into the other small bag. Those will probably be the one that we'll check. And that I'll pack later. So anyway, so that's basically our packing. After this, we're going to go to the airport, basically. So we are leaving tomorrow afternoon. We have an Uber that is going to come and pick us up, and we are going to fly, or we're going to drive to PDX, and then from PDX we're flying to Seattle, and then our flight leaves tomorrow evening, so we've got plenty of time. And then our flight out of Seattle leaves a little bit before midnight, I believe, so it's an overnight flight. So when we arrive in Reykjavik on Wednesday, it'll be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is very convenient because that is the time that we can check into our stateroom. So once we get there, we'll be able to go straight to our stateroom. So anyway, after this, I think we're all done here. So I think the next time you will see me is at the airport. Well, it is 1:30 on our day for departure. We have an Uber driver picking us up at 3:30, and we are completely done and ready to go and just kind of sitting around waiting. Well, we are at our first stop, Portland International Airport, aka PDX, aka the most beautiful airport in the United States. That's not just me talking. This is truly a beautiful airport. They completely redid it, and it opened a little over a year ago, I think, with the new design and everything, and it really is gorgeous. There's still some parts that are unfinished, but it's mostly done, and it's really, really a beautiful airport. So we're going to hang out here for a couple of hours, and then we're catching a flight to Seattle, Washington, and from there we're flying to Reykjavik, Iceland. We are now in Seattle, and we are waiting to board our flight to Reykjavik. And Seattle is a much bigger airport than Portland, let me tell you. And I have to say that I think the Seattle airport, SeaTac as it is known, the Seattle Tacoma Airport, must have the most confusing subway system, shuttle system, whatever you want to call it, between terminals of any airport I've ever been to, including the map that they have of they call it the Seattle Underground or something like that, but the map is comically confusing. But basically, because of where we're in, we came into Concourse C, and that's where our flight from Portland landed, and our port to Reykjavik is in Portland, and is in Concourse S, and we had to board three shuttles in order to get here. We had to board a shuttle that took us from Concourse C to Concourse D, and then another shuttle that connects Concourse D to Concourse A, and then another shuttle that connects Concourse A to Concourse S. So luckily they were very quick. It was no problem, and we got here no problem, but it was comically confusing. But next up, Reykjavik. And that's going to be it for now, and the next time I see you will be in Reykjavik. Reykjavik. That was a long, but mostly very smooth flight. It got a little bumpy towards the end, but other than that, it was fine. And I managed to sleep through a good portion of it. And now it is time for us to go get our luggage, and then we put these little tags and stuff on it, and meet with our transport to the cruise. Put our tags on our luggage, and now we're going to go meet the Viking representative and go to the ship. After putting the tags on our bags, we saw a person holding up a Viking sign, and he directed us to just go to the exit, and there'll be a kiosk there, which is there's this kiosk here with the young lady who just said we're already all checked in because we did it online, and to just leave our bags here and wait for a bus that's going to take us to the cruise ship, which I believe I overheard her saying was a 45-minute ride. Norwegian ship there, Norwegian Prima, which is significantly bigger than our ship. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of Jaunts with John T. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please be sure to give us a like. Now, here at Jaunts with John T, we go on jaunts around the world, around the country, around the state, around the city, and sometimes just around the house. And if that sounds like fun to you, please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because that way you will be notified of future videos. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I will be putting together a playlist that includes all of this series of videos about going on Viking cruises, this one as well as the next one, which will be about being on the cruise itself, and then the third one, which will be about the whole disembarkation process. And I'll also put in all of the videos that we did while we were in Iceland and all the experiences that we had there. And if that is something that you want to see, then you can click right here. And eventually all those videos will go there. That's going to do it for now. I am John T, and until I can figure out a better sign off, Thanks for watching.